welcome, Aiboan. So this lesson is going to focus about pie charts, right? So we've done bar charts, we've done 9 graphs, and now we're going to focus on pie charts. So here as well, we've got our 5-step process, right? Analyze the question, identifying the main features, you write the introduction, then you write the overall view, right? Or you call it overview, and then you write the detailed paragraphs. Again here, it could be 3, 4, and 5 if needed, right? It's not always a must, if needed. So moving on, what we do first is we analyze the question. Now, sentence 1, it is a brief description of the graphic or rather the pie chart. 2, it tells us what we should do. Okay, so the graphical representation is obviously going to be a pie chart or pie charts, not just always plural, right? It could be one or it could be more than one pie chart to explain. Step 2, you need to identify the main features, right? So you ask yourself, what are the units of measurements? Now here, you don't have the vertical and the horizontal axis. Why? Because it's a pie chart. So you could ask yourself, okay, what are the units of measurements? Is it in proportions or is it in percentages? Then, if there is a time, what are the time periods? Is it the past, present, or future? This will actually help you to understand what tense or tensors should you use in your writing. Okay, so as I always tell you, grammar is an important part in your writing task. So therefore, you should focus on the tensors, right? The accuracy as well as the range as well. Then think about what you can learn from the title and the labels. Sometimes a key instead of segment labels, right? What is the most obvious trend? And then, are there any notable similarities or differences? Okay. Right. Now, I'm not sure if you understood this point. Let me just touch a bit on that, right? Sometimes a key instead of segment labels, right? So sometimes on the side, I'll explain to you, they give you a key, right? So it's important that you understand a key instead of all the segment of labels. I'll explain to you when I'm actually doing one of the pie charts in our practice question session, right? So, moving on, we're supposed to write an intro. So just like a bar chart, just like a line graph, in a pie chart also, we write an intro. Keep it simple. Write only one sentence, okay? Paraphrase the description and make sure you replace the keywords with synonyms. Could write the units of measurements in the chart if you want to, right? And here are some prompts. The graph shows, I think we don't need a full stop there, right? So the graph shows, or you could say the graph illustrates, okay? Now what I have told you is always, so what I have told you is don't just put graph for, you know, the word there, write the type. So the pie chart. Then you don't need this word graph, okay? The pie chart. Shows, illustrates, provides, reveals, presents information about what? Okay, illustrates the trend in what, between which time period to which time period. So depending on what pie chart you have got, what information it presents, right, you could then think, okay, how am I going to paraphrase the question and put it into one sentence. So step 4, you're going to write an overview, which means that is going to be your second body para. Okay, so you would again include general information. Do not write specific information. Okay, which is numbers, right? Don't write 50% increase, 60% decrease, right? Have a look at the obvious trend. Okay, what is the obvious one, and talk about that trend, but not with specific information, but general. All right. You could write about 2 to 3 sentences, approximately around 40 words, right? So step 5, write detailed paragraphs. So you could write 3, 4, right? Or if needed only, you will write the 5th one. That's why I've written down here usually 2 body paragraphs, right? So here you have to include more than 1 paragraph definitely. So minimum of 2 body paras. Organize it into a logical order. Don't run here and there and all over the place as I taught you, right, when I was doing the line graph also. Put it into that logical sequence, right? Include dates, numbers to provide evidence, right? Include comparisons if relevant. Again, use linking words, right? In paragraph 3, support your first key feature using the relevant evidence. And in the 4th paragraph, support it, right? Support your second key feature by writing the relevant evidence, right? So, moving on, practice question 1, right? So we've done this, okay? We've done the bar chart, we've done line graphs. It is the same 5-step process, okay? If you haven't watched those 2 videos, you must watch those 2 and then come and follow through with the pie charts. It's important, right? So, follow the 5-step process, okay? So before I give you one whole pie chart to do it on your own, okay, or start writing it, first let's do a gap fill. Please bear in mind that actually for the IELTS exam, it is not a gap fill, okay? It is that you start writing complete answer on your own. But I need to support you, right? So first we'll take the baby steps. We'll start off with the gap fill and then slowly start doing questions on your own, okay? So, here is our first one. Reasons for cycling to work, reasons for driving to work. Okay, so now since I've done a few, pictorial illustrations with you, pie chart, I thought, okay, why not let's start with 2. So you kind of understand, okay, I need to start comparing 2. Okay, so here you've got 2 pie charts, the same type. And you need to start comparing these 2. So here you've got the reasons, health and fitness, okay, and less pollution. These are the 2 reasons and they are the highest, right? Then of course, half of that percentage, which is 15%, because there are no parking problems. And then just a few, just below that, you've got, because there's no cost, it's obviously faster than driving. So those are the reasons why some would cycle to work. However, the reasons for driving to work is that it's comfortable, and you can see that that is a larger percentage in terms of a single reason. Then distance to work is nearly half of that. Then of course, it was equal amounts for faster than cycling, and because you need to carry a lot of things to work, and then safer than cycling, right? So those were the reasons why some would actually drive to work. Again, this is an extract from the OET official website. Alright, so let us have a look. Now here there are three main features or trends that we can see. So we saw that the largest proportion of people who cycle to work do so for health and environmental reasons, right? Health and environmental, because it's less polluted. These are the two reasons. Then we saw the highest percentage of people, they drive because it's comfortable, right? Then the third main feature is that for an almost equal proportion of people, their chosen method is the fastest. What do I mean by that? Okay? What do we mean? Can you see faster than driving is roughly around 12%. Okay? Faster than cycling is roughly around 14%. So it's almost the equal amount, right? For almost equal proportion of people, right, their chosen method is the fastest. Roughly it's an equal amount, just 2% difference. So here are the three main features or the trends that I've identified, and I think anyone looking at these two pie charts would identify the same. Okay. Now, as I tell you always, don't be in a rush. Okay. If you be in a rush to quickly write something and give to the examiner, that will not get you a 7. Now you must be wondering, why is she always harping on a 7? I don't need a 7, or do I need a 7? Most of the students doing academic need 7. I'm talking about the majority. However, there could be some students who don't need 7 and who need below 7. So I have taught you how to read through the band descriptors. If you want a 5 or a 6 or 6.5, what should you achieve? So follow through with it. Okay. Now, let's have a look at the introduction. Alright, so moving on, let us have a look at the gap fill. The two pie charts, right? So it's plural, so you can write the two pie charts show or illustrates, or the two pie charts describe. You don't say describes, okay? Why? Because subject-verb agreement, okay? The two pie charts describe the key reasons why people choose to either cycle or drive to work by percentage. Okay, we know it is by percentage. Right, so next we are going to write an overview, which means the obvious trend or trends, right? The blank proportion of people who cycle have made this choice for health and environmental reasons blank. The prime advantage of driving to work is considered to be the comfort of traveling blank. Notably, for an almost blank proportion of people, their chosen method is the fastest. So, having a look at this, the blank proportion of people who cycle have made this choice for health. So, can you remember there were two reasons? One was for health and no pollution, environmental. So, that was the largest. Okay. So the largest proportion of people who cycle have made this choice for health and environmental reasons, and then the other side, okay? While the prime advantage of driving to work is considered to be the comfort of traveling by how? Traveling by car, right? Now, can you see here, right? So the prime advantage of driving to work is considered to be the comfort of traveling by vehicle. Okay, so you can, travel by vehicle because it is a comfort zone then, right? Notably, for an almost blank proportion of people, their chosen method is fastest. Now, what have we done? We have put our obvious or main features into one sentence without writing any specific figures, right? So, notably, for almost an equal. I'm not telling how much. Remember, I told you no numbers. Okay, so I'm not telling you how much, but I have put the main features 1, 2 and 3 into one sentence because they were the obvious trends to be seen in the two pie charts. Now that is my second para. So moving on, my first body paragraph or detailed first para, which means the third one, will include feature 1. What is feature 1 now? The main feature here, right? Main feature 1. So you can categorize how you want to put these main trends, right? Or you could even categorize it by, talking about these two pie charts separately. Okay, that's also okay. But because the question tells us to compare, right? We need to compare and contrast and show the examiner that we understand that there are different reasons as to why people go to work by bicycle or by car, right? Then we need to make sure that we show those significant differences. Now, when I saw that word car again and when I showed it to you, you could even write here by car. That would be better. Right? Could even write by car. So coming back here, taken together, health and fitness and less pollution are reasons given by over half of the people. Why? It was 30% and 30%. If you can remember, right? 30% and 30% here. So it was more than half percentage. 50% is nearly half. So it's more than that. So here it's 50, right? It's more than that. Okay. Taken together, health and fitness and less pollution are reasons given by over half of all people who prefer traveling by what? Who prefer traveling by bicycle. Next one, each represents a 30% portion which is double the next most popular reason. Okay, so the next most popular reason is half as that because of that amount only is doubled and that was only 30%, right? So which means it is half of 30% means the next popular one is at 15%. And that is no parking problems. That's why they cycle to work. So each represents a 30% portion which is double the next most popular reason, which is lack of parking issues at 15%. Okay, you don't have to say popular reason which is a lack of parking issues, which is lack of parking issues at 15%. Okay. So here we have included feature 1, and in that we have then given points to support the main idea. So we have written the percentages 30% as well as 15%. So we have given significant numbers. Moving on, we are going to write the second paragraph, which is the fourth paragraph in terms of structure, and that will include feature 2 and 3 that we wrote in the first main trends. A different set of concerns has affected the decision of those who choose to commute by car. Blank is by far the most significant factor at 40% of people, but distance to work is a more important concern for just over a fifth of drivers. So you all can see here a fifth of drivers. I've not written the percentage, but the amount. A faster journey time is the key factor blank to a figure of 12% of cyclists who find their means of transport quicker. So why do people actually travel by car? What was the main reason? Most significant factor, which was 40%. Why? Comfort. Okay. They wanted to travel to work comfortably. So comfort is far by the most significant factor, and that was 40%. Okay. Then, but the distance to work is a more important concern, which was just over a fifth of drivers. For blank of people, a faster journey. Okay, so faster journey, how much was it? 14%, right? So 14% of people, a faster journey time is the key factor to a figure of 12%. So that was compared to a figure of 12% of cyclists who find their means of transport quicker. All right. So now you can see how we have categorized this. Okay. So, I mean, in terms of other ways, you've categorized it as to how people would, different reasons as to why they cycle, and then the different reasons as to why they drive to work. Okay, in other words, key feature 1 in one para, key feature 2 and 3 in the next para. So that is why that 5-step process is important. If you can analyze the question and identify the main trends first and jot it down, then it's easy for you to write your overview as well as break down your paragraphs. Clear? Right, so let us have a look at a practice question. Okay, so let's mark this as our first practice question. The pie charts below compare the proportion of energy capacity in gigawatts in 2015 with the predictions for 2040. Okay, so this is like an actual exam type question. Okay, so what does it do? It compares the proportion of energy capacity, right, in gigawatts. So in 2015 as well as the predicted amount of gigawatts for 2040. So we are supposed to select and report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay? Alright, so here is the energy capacity in 2015 and 2040. Right? So 2015 we have 6.688 gigawatts, whereas in 2040 it's predicted to be 11.678 gigawatts. Okay? Now, in terms of energy capacity, right, fossil fuels was 64%. Then we have other renewables and then we have wind. No, we've got nuclear, wind, and then solar. However, by 2040, right, fossil fuels still remain the highest, but it's obviously reduced, okay? And then other renewables still is the second highest, okay? But it also has decreased. And then solar, which was at 2%, shows a significant increase to 18%, okay? And then wind also has increased to 12%, whereas nuclear has remained somewhat in the similar percentage, right? So that's what we understand. So first, what should you do? Analyze the question, okay? That's what we have done. Now you need to jot down your main trends or main features, okay? So how many main features do you have? How would you start categorizing it? Think about it. Take a few minutes, pause the video and jot yourself some notes. What are the main features or the trends that you can see? Here you can see, right, that fossil fuels is the highest, whereas here you can see that fossil fuels is still the highest but obviously has decreased, right? And then other renewables in both are the highest, and the least in both are obviously nuclear. So you could talk about those trends. Now let us start writing it together. Hopefully you've identified the main features, right? And let us start writing together. Now let's have a look at the introduction, right? The pie charts show the expected changes in energy capacity in 2040 compared to 2015. So I have paraphrased the question in one sentence, right? Then I have to give an overall understanding, right? So now this is your introductory para, okay? So we've written what type it is, and then we have paraphrased the question. Now what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to write the overall view. Now the overall trend is, you can see that it is the fossil fuels is the highest, right? But obviously it has reduced. It's predicted to reduce in terms of percentage. So let us write that bit. Overall, despite the decline in the proportion, oops, there's a spelling error, proportion of energy capacity from fossil fuels rise in solar and wind sources are predicted. So what is the overall view here? despite the decline in the proportion of energy capacity from fossil fuels, so you can see 64% has reduced by 2040 predicted ones, rise in solar and wind sources are predicted in 2040. So here you can see wind and solar is predicted to be higher. Right, so how I would like to break it is talk about these two pie charts separately. So I'd like to talk about 2015 separately and then talk about 2040 separately. That would be easier. Some of you can disagree. Some of you can say, okay, let's talk about fossil fuels and other renewables together because obviously it reduces. Okay. And let's talk about the others together, that is wind, nuclear and solar, because they increase. Oh, sorry. No. Fossil fuels and other renewables and nuclear actually reduce. So you would talk about those three in one para, whereas wind and solar increase. So you would talk about those in one para. Okay, so let me re-emphasize on that. Fossil fuels, nuclear and other renewables in one, wind and solar in one. So it depends. You could break it down like that, or you could break it down to 2015 in one para, 2014 in one para. How do you want to do it? It's your choice. That's fine. Okay, like I did the first one, the main features. Remember, I categorized it according to that. So if you want to identify it clearly, which is the 5-step process, you should identify it clearly and then break it down as to how you want to. So that would be the initial best way to do it. Okay. Now I have done it in terms of the comparison. So let me write down my first body para. Okay, the most noticeable feature is the drop in the proportion of the capacity of fossil fuels with the projected capacity almost doubling from 6.688 gigawatts to 11.68 gigawatts. It is expected, right? It is expected to experience a significant decline, falling from 64% in 2015 to 44% in 2040. So here what I have written is like what in terms of the main feature 1. Okay, so I've spoken about the capacity of fossil fuels dropping. Okay, and that's what I have written here. Okay, I didn't talk about other renewables because it's a very insignificant number, just 2%. So I've not picked it up as a main feature, so I'm not putting it here as well. So what I have told here is that the drop in the proportion of the capacity of fossil fuels is surprising. Why? Because the capacity overall is expecting to double, right? So in terms of fossil fuels, right, it is expected to experience a significant decline, falling from 64% to 44% in 2040. So if I take one color, give me a minute. Here, this was like my main trend 1. Okay, that's my main trend 1. Now, in the next bit, I'm going to put the feature 2 and 3. So, solar and wind together. And that's what I would do in the next para. Okay. So, I've given the examiner an understanding. Okay, this is my main trend 1. That's what I put in my overall view. And now I'm going to work on my second and third main features. Let's see what I'm going to write. Now let's use some signposting words by contrast or linking words by contrast, comma, it is predicted that there will be a dramatic rise in the proportion of energy capacity, right? Energy capacity from solar energy with a jump from 2% to 18% in 2040, while the proportion of the capacity for wind is anticipated. Anticipated means predicted, right? Anticipated to increase more than twofold from 5% in 2015 to 12% in 2040. So here I have jotted down our next main feature that we identified, right? We spoke about solar as well as wind. So those are the two features, right, that we identified. So I've written about both, right? And if you feel you want to talk about the other two, you could in the separate para, which is very insignificant. So I haven't spoken about those two. But if you really feel you want to, please put it as a third para. But because I didn't kind of put it as a main feature, I've not put it here. But it depends. If you really feel you want to, that's still okay. But put it at the end if you want to, right? So here is what I have written for the next bit, okay? By contrast, now this should be a comma, right? So hopefully you understand. It is predicted that there will be a dramatic rise in the proportion of energy capacity from solar energy with a jump from 2% to 18% in 2040. While the proportion of the capacity for wind is anticipated again to increase more than twofold from 5%. It's more than, twice, right? Which is not 10%, but just more than that to 12% in 2040. So I think that was kind of a very clear answer, right? And that's what we picked up at the start when we were identifying the main features. So I think this is fairly a good answer, and then it could help you to kind of understand how to structure your answer. So let us have a look at the next one. So let's put this down as practice question 2, right? So the charts give information about employment in the UK in 1998 and 2012. This is in the past. Now here, employment numbers, okay? So here, you have the number in thousands. And here, you have your labels. Right, now before I move ahead, I remembered something I didn't tell you. Remember, there's something that I didn't teach you. It is this bit. Which bit? 1 minute, let me just get it. Remember, I told you that I would teach you what a key is and what labels are, right? So let me just quickly, okay. So these ones here, these are labels, right? This is the label. This is the key. All right, so understand that you need to pay attention to which one. Okay, you need to go through both, right? It's important that you obviously look at the key carefully, right? I mean, so the labels before, sometimes it's important, right? Because you need to know what colors, which color talks about which one. So it's important, right? So what does it tell you here? Now, I think it will make it easier for you to actually understand. Sometimes a key instead of segment labels. So it's important that you understand these labels, right? Because sometimes you have the key and you then have, instead of the labels, you've got the key only as well, right? So you have to kind of get it, which one is what and which one is more important. So, let me come back to where we were. We're in our second question, right? And we were talking about employment in the UK, right? So here, in two different years, 1988 and 2012, you could see 53% of the men were on full-time employment, which was 12,539 in thousands, right? I'm just going to tell the numbers. They're obviously in thousands, right? And when it comes to 2012, it was still the highest, but obviously it had reduced. Whereas in 1988, women only 19%, which was 4,482 in thousands, but increased to 26%, and here is the number. Now, if you take in terms of women part-time, 1988 2012, not much of a difference, okay? Just about 2% difference, okay? And in terms of numbers, well, that's not that much. And then again, if you take men in terms of part-time, not much of a difference, just 1%, 2% difference. So the significant difference was actually in terms of men and women working in full-time job opportunities. Right. So first think, what are your main trends? Okay. Or what are your main features? What is the obvious trend or trends? How would you want to categorize it? Okay. So I've briefed you through. Now when I'm telling you, this should give you an understanding or a hint. Okay, this is how I should categorize my data. Okay. All right. So pause the video here, right? Time yourself for 20 minutes and write an answer. Okay, so I hope you would have completed your answer. Let us have a look at a sample answer. Let's write one so that you could compare it against your answer. So we start off with the introduction and we have to talk about the type. So the pie charts describe the numbers and percentages. Why? Because the percentage is also put down in terms of numbers below that, right? Of men and women both in full-time and part-time employment in UK in 1988 and 2012. Overall, it is seen that all the numbers increased, but there were significant differences in the proportions for each year. Firstly, although the number of men in full-time employment was the greatest. Okay, the greatest in both years. The greatest change was in the number of women working full-time, which increased from 4482 in 1988 to 7696 in thousands in 2012. Right, so overall I have written that okay, the numbers have increased. Now if you can see here, the numbers have increased. Remember I was talking about it? Numbers have increased. Okay, but in terms of percentage, there is a drop. This has reduced. Okay, this has increased. This has increased and this has reduced. Okay, but the numbers have increased. So I've told that in terms of numbers, it's increased, but there were significant differences in the proportion for each year. So I'm writing in the past because why? I'm using the past tense because it's talking about 1988 and 2012. Now, firstly, I say, okay, the number of men in full-time employment was the greatest in both years. That's obvious, right? But what is more greatest in terms of numbers is the change in the number of women working full-time. So you can see as a percentage, it has increased significantly, right? Which increased from 4482 in thousands to 7696 in terms of thousands. It has increased. Okay, so that's my first body para. So I've kind of spoken about, yes, this is the greatest. Yes, this is the greatest, but this is even more the greatest, and this is how much it has increased in terms of numbers. Okay, so it's how you want to categorize your information. There is no right or wrong way saying this is the only way you can categorize. No, right? You can do it the way you want to. Okay, so I've just given you a heads up. You can obviously categorize it how you want to, and your answer, this is only a sample, right? Your answer could be written in a different manner but still could be correct if you've categorized it and written in the order, proper logical order. So when we're writing the next bit, right, you could talk about the part-time opportunities, right, because I've kind of touched on the full-time, okay. So men full-time, women full-time, I've kind of touched on it. So I'd like to then talk about men and women part-time, okay. So I'd like to say that, you know, men working part-time had increased by 1%, even though the numbers rose significantly, right? Not significantly, even though the numbers rose, right? And then women working part-time had dropped by 2%, right? Which again shows a slight increase in terms of numbers. So that I would write in the next paragraph, and you could jot it down in the next paragraph. All right? Okay, so let us have a look at the next practice question. Okay, so the chart below shows the proportions of graduates from Brighton University in 2019 entering different employment sectors. So here is a pie chart, just one, employment sectors of graduates from Brighton University. So here you can see that there is no key, right? Everything's rather like a label. Service industry is 33%, which is the highest, okay? Then you've got the manufacturing industry, you've got the education industry, the politics and the government, and then you've got transportation and warehousing, science and technology. What else have we got? We've got sport, right? We've got other, we've got civil service, which is kind of minor, okay? So transport is the orange one, okay? Science and technology is this one. Other is this one. Civil service is this one. What is charity is this bit here, which is 0.3, and this is 0.1 for sport, right? So, you know, very minor ones, 0.3, 0.1, it's like even unidentified, right? So it's like really, can you see here? Just a really insignificant proportion. Right, so I think here as well, you need to understand your main features, you know, what is the highest, what is the least, okay? And then what comes in second and third place. It's quite easy because there's only one pie chart. So please pause the video here, take 20 minutes and jot down your answer. All right, so I hope you have finished now. Let us have a look at an answer together. The pie chart illustrates the career choices of Brighton University's (2019) graduates, giving the percentages who worked in various sectors after finishing university, right? So here I've written as to what the pie chart really illustrates, okay? So I've written the type and then I have paraphrased the question, okay? So you can say, overall, working in service industries were the most famous decisions among the graduates of Brighton University. So let's have a look at the first body para. As the pie chart, let's say as per the pie chart, comma, service industries was a prevalent sector accounted for nearly a third. Inside brackets, I'll put down 33%. The other significant career choice was the manufacturing industry with about 16.3%. Okay. Moreover, just over 12% took jobs in politics and government, while a small fraction, put it inside brackets, 14.7% selected the education sector. The next para, I'm going to talk about the insignificant ones, right? However, the least popular professional options were charity and sport, registered at 0.3% and 0.1% consecutively. Alright, so here in terms of categorizing it or putting it into paragraphs, what I did was I wrote the significant ones, the significant numbers in one para, and the least ones, remember I spoke about the insignificant ones, so those I put it into one para. Okay, so overall I said working in the service industries were the most famous decisions among the graduates. You could also write here So if you can see here, it was the service industries, and there you could also put down the least one, which was sport and charity, so that it is much more clearer. Okay, I think that's a better idea. Okay, so just I'm going to put a star here and say put down the least, so that it's nice and clear when you're putting your 2 paragraphs as well. All right, so I think now this should build up your confidence to start writing on your own. Okay, so the next question, okay, is for the pie charts, and it compares the ways of accessing the news in Canada and Australia. So here you have Canada, here you have Australia, okay. 40% was by TV, okay, which was close to online. And then print was only 14%, radio was 7%, and non-specified was just 3%. Whereas in Australia, it was quite similar in terms of TV, but online was much more higher. So this was 36, this was 52, right? And then print was 7% less than what was in Canada. And then 2% non-specified and just 2% for radio as well, okay? So there we have ways of accessing the news in Australia and Canada, but we don't have a specific year, right? So that brings us to the question as to which tense should we be writing, okay? So think about it. Take 20 minutes, pause the video here, and jot down your answer in your notebook. Right, so I hope you've jot down your answer. Let's have a look at what I'm going to write. The pie charts show the ways of finding out the news in 2 different countries, Canada and Australia. Okay, so there we go. Next one. Overall, the internet was the most preferred way to access news in Australia while in Canada people preferred to watch TV. Let us have a look at the body para, right? One of the most prominent features of this data is that while in Canada, over a third of people access the news online. In Australia, the figure is less. No, I think it's more, no? Sorry. In Australia, the figure is more than half at 52%. Full stop. TV news is popular in both countries with about 2/5, right? With about 2/5 of Canadian population favoring this mode of delivery, and only 3% fewer in Australia. Okay, so now I have written the first para for you, first body para. What should you be doing? You should complete the next body para and add a few more bits of pieces of information that you want to, right? So what I have done is I've kind of put all the prominent ones into one para and the least popular ones into one para. That's how I would categorize it, and hopefully you've done it the same way, right? So you can pause the video and have a look at my sample answer and see what you have written and is it the same. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is the next one, you can do it as homework on your own completely. The two pie charts below show some employment patterns. Oops, sorry. Shows some employment patterns in Great Britain, which is UK, right, in 1992. So coming here you go. Female, male, right? What does it show? Female, male employment patterns. So craft, general laborers, managerial, clerical, other non-manual and other manual. Okay, so you've got the two genders, male and female, and here is their work patterns. Please pause the video, time yourself for 20 minutes and have a go at this practice question. As I always tell you, please make sure that you gain that confidence to write an answer on your own, because why? This is towards the latter part, right? So we've done grammar, we've done vocab, right? Now you need to start writing on your own. I've done gap fills, I've done, the introduction, overview, body para 1, 2, sometimes 3 with you. gradually I'm letting you sail on your own. Okay? So I think with that we've come to the end of the lesson. So having a look at today's lesson, I think we focused a lot on practice questions, which is what we should be doing, right? Without writing, you cannot get a good score, okay? So lots of people tell you, oh, you should learn, you should learn, you should learn. Good, you should learn, you should watch videos, right? But the most important thing is you trying a question on your own, okay? So with that, we come to the end of the lesson, pie charts.